Welcome to the Afghanistan Project Podcast. I'm your host, Beth Bailey, and my guest today is Elizabeth Lynn, who you might remember from December when we were talking about family reunification cases, and we were hoping that, you know, the incoming Trump administration would look into those P3 U.S. RAP cases of Afghans who had been separated from their family members during the withdrawal and had been waiting many, many long years for to be reunited with one another. But now we're here because things have changed quite a lot in the last, has it, how many months? 2 months? But
2 months yeah.
It feels like maybe a little bit more. I've got like 5 times the grays now. So anyway, I'm going to give you guys Elizabeth's background because I want to make sure that we talk about that. You've got such an impressive background, Elizabeth, and it's really cool to share with everybody. So Elizabeth is the Director of Government Operations at Operation Recovery, where she directs the Afghanistan and Grow America Farm Corps initiatives. She served in the U.S. Air Force and the Navy Reserves and has received multiple commendations for her service. After holding a variety of positions with the U.S. Postal Service, USCIS, IRS, and other U.S. government institutions, Elizabeth retired in 2020 and came out of retirement shortly thereafter to help Afghans who were left behind in their homeland during the withdrawal. So it has been a time for you, Elizabeth, and it's great to have you here now to talk about what has changed since December for you. So thanks for joining me.
No problem, Beth. It's been a whirlwind. I think, when we talk about what we've been doing over the past, almost 4 years, we had almost got into where we were sailing. Things were moving, and we could kind of sit back and just monitor and step in when we needed to. But, I don't think many of us expected this complete stoppage because we thought that, we had a lot of allies, lawmakers that were our allies that were veterans. And, we thought that the veterans would stand up for us. I'm still waiting to see that. I still have hope as we go through this initial 90 days. And I think we'll be able to assess this a lot better after that initial 90 days are up. I think it's April 20th that we're counting down to. So between now and then, I'd love to see something lifted. But if not, we're holding out for that time.
Absolutely. There are so many questions about that, though. It seems, 90 days. If you're a lawmaker, I remember when I left government service in March of 2013, it was right before a big government looming shutdown, and they talked about furloughs for people, and as if it were no big deal. This is like people's lives on the line. My dog is going to join in too. I guarantee you it's going to be like a fun back and forth here. No, he's asleep. He's tired.
Okay, good.
But yeah, like, it was like, oh, it's no big deal. It's furloughs. I'm like, furloughs means that my livelihood ends, right? Like these are big deals. 90 days is not a lot of time to maybe a lawmaker, but to somebody who has been working on this for 3.5 years, or to an Afghan who has been without work, without access to education for their children, without, stability, living in that, like, you don't even have, in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, what do they have on that level, right? They have very little that is stable and secure for them. And now to have that 90 days, and it's not 90 days and we resume in full, it's 90 days and we decide what to do from here. So right. It could once again be throwing everything into tumult. And it's I likened it to Schrodinger's cat right now. Like, is it alive? Is it dead? We do not know what is going on. It's inside the box and we can't see it. And anyway, it's so destabilizing. And I want to know, because everyone likens this to August of 2021, right? How does it feel for you and volunteers like yourself at OpReco now in the midst of that instability?
Whew, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, let's start with the easy stuff, right? Right, yeah. Elizabeth? We'll go easy.
Yeah, in 2021, I felt alone. I didn't know who to turn to. I thought the world was, crumbling around me. I was angry, unstable, I could say. I had no idea, right? Now I do have an idea. I know what we're capable of. We're capable of moving our allies. We're capable of vetting our allies. We know them now, like you said. It's been over 3 years, and so many of them we have conversations, whether it's email, it's by messages. You just get to know the families. You see the pictures of the kids, and their stories and why they're considered allies. And I think that's what makes me more angry than anything, is that I understand the reason they need to come here. I understand what they did for us, the lives that they've saved, literally saving lives. And, I don't know when this was said, and I don't know, I don't have any, like, a source for it. So I'm not going to say who said it, but a lawmaker said that all the ones that needed to get here were here.
I've heard that from other people, but I don't know. I did not know that a lawmaker actually said that.
Yes. And that same person sat with us and talked about our allies and why they needed to come, and they were in harm's way. So that is what's disappointing. Instead of being angry now, I'm disappointed. Instead of being, mad and yelling at our lawmakers, I'm wondering why they're not stepping up. I'm wondering why the veterans are quiet. Because they had so much to say, and where are they now? So, it's fine if we take a pause. I can accept that. But I can't accept the silence and not talking about it at all, and not an inkling of support. There's nothing that's been stated of what's going to resume and when, and what they're actually looking at to resume. Like, if you come out and you say, well, we see issues with the vetting, we're going to improve that, then I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But we're not hearing anything. So that silence, it's deafening, and it's, I don't know, that's that mental breakdown, right? Like, you're wondering what's going to happen tomorrow, and you know that you have so many stories to tell, and nobody's listening.
Yes. Oh, preach. Like, I tried to figure out what the difference was for me too between August 21 and now, and it's just like what you just said, where I was alone in all of those feelings. I was so angry. And I think to expound on what you said too, it's like, I knew how bad the Taliban were. I had been looking at them for years, and I had to step away. I was so angry that we were going to negotiate with them in 2013, and that I had to stop looking because I was so irate. I knew how bad it was, but I didn't know those families, and I didn't know their specific stories. And so, yeah, it makes me want to fight harder now than I did then. And the fact that I have that community of people who, when things are hitting the fan, I can send a signal message and just say, holy cow, and to know that all of us are going through it together, and that we all, like you said, everybody has gotten better at what they do in the interim. But yeah, it is really frustrating. It's like there's been this shift in messaging from these people, and you're like, what? I was your BFF like 5 minutes. What happened? Now you do not remember my name. It's like they got really famous all of a sudden, and we're those like weird kids in middle school that they're like, no, we don't know you anymore.
Yeah.
It's very disheartening.
It really is. And when you know the how the pathways work, and the different opportunities that they had, the tickets in hand, we can just throw that into a sentence and say, 1,600 or however many odd people had tickets in their hand ready to fly. And that's just a statement, but it's not. Those are families. Those are children. Those are girls who haven't been able to go to school. Those are dads that haven't been able to support their families. Those are moms that haven't been able to go to work. And, and we're just going to say, oh, sorry. And to me, that's a waste.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how we're talking about, we want to save money. We want to try to be, better. We want to get into a better economic, shape here in the United States. But they had tickets. They've been vetted. They've had their medicals. All of that does cost money. But every person is worth it because they're there for a reason.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of those people. What kinds of people are Operation Recovery helping right now, and what did they do for the U.S.? And let's talk about what you see from Afghans when they come here too, so we can kind of go the full spectrum of, like, because I've had it here on the podcast too before, everybody who worked with us came over on the initial. Actually, a lot of people who worked with us didn't get to come over on the initial because we were helping people like the skate club who were going to be predated upon by the Taliban, and other people who might not have had like close ties to the US, but were definitely at risk of Taliban retribution. So let's demystify that, Elizabeth, and tell me about the kinds of people you guys are helping and what you expect them to do when they get to this country.
Oh my goodness, the opportunities are endless. You know, working right now with one of our young men, the son of a commando. He was in India when everything happened, because his dad had sent the family away, because he was going to continue fighting. So he got his wife and children out of the country, and you know, the son was like top of his class. He's an economist. His brother, you know, the second oldest son, was in dentist school. These kids were doing things, and they were going to go places, and now they're just, you know, sitting there waiting for an opportunity that we promised them. You know, so when you talk to the dad and he talks about his kids and how proud he is of the children, you know, what are we doing? You know, why did they have multiple pathways? There's a P1, there's the family reunification, the DS 4317, and they have the I-730 now because, you know, he's an asylee. So we have people that have multiple pathways that have been vetted, that have, you know, there's screening that has occurred, and now they're just at another standstill. So, you know, that is so hard to look at the father and say, you know, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to wait. So nothing's happening.
The father is stateside.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he sent them. He was getting threats from the Taliban that they were when he was fighting and with the United States, with the Americans, and he sent his family to India, and then COVID hit. So his family was stuck in India. He hasn't seen them in almost 5 years. So you know, that's the worst case. His daughter's growing up without him. You know, it's just horrendous.
I think, and I want to hear other stories too, but I just want to say, like, just for people, this didn't start. This is a really good illustration of the fact that it didn't start in August of 2021. People who worked with our forces were at such risk before August of 2021 that they would do things like this, or they would not go home. I had recorded an episode with a gentleman, really incredible, and I have to wait to put it out because he's at such risk of Taliban retribution, so I won't say what he does or did or anything like that, but it's the same kind of thing where he didn't get to go home for but like maybe 1 week out of the year because he was going to be targeted. And like we need to remember that this is not like, oh, it just became dangerous when the Taliban took over. It had been dangerous. These people risked their lives. When we say risk their lives to assist us, that's the kind of thing that had to be done. I can't imagine not seeing your child for 5 years. All right, and I'm off my soapbox. I want to hear more stories, Elizabeth.
No, you're good. You're good. You know, and again about the person that's here, he went through our Marine officers basic training. So he was here for schools 3, 4, 5 times. We know who he is. You know, his family should be here. Another case that I've been I've worked with a lot of different NGOs as well to try to help, you know, because we've all learned different areas we're kind of good at. And one of them was a P1 that they actually didn't respond to the justification request when PRM changed. You know, they changed how P1 first came out. There was kind of a lot of confusion, and then they changed it at some point. I think in 2022 they added a justification that was needed, and this person didn't do the justification. So the applicant had gone to Pakistan to process his case. He thought he had a case that was, you know, making its way through. Ultimately, his case was shut down because the justification was never put in. So he's been, you know, trying to stay, you know, in Pakistan, and you know, people have been supporting him, and that's us Americans have been supporting him. And, you know, come to find out there was no case there. So we just gotten his case reinstated when everything stopped. So we just got it opened back up again. We just got the justification submitted. with help of people that might not have jobs now. And they were going out of their way to help, and now we don't know, what their tomorrow is. But the worst thing about this case, it was on hold for so long. His wife was electrocuted and burned over 30% of her body. At the same time, they found out that there was actually no case.
Oh.
So she hasn't been able to get medical care. I mean, you could just imagine in Pakistan, it's very difficult for Afghans in general, but to not have money and to be burned, her entire upper portion of her body is covered in burns. Unbelievable sorrow, unbelievable, anger, you name it. When you look at the images and you see what she's going through without medicine, and she needs the skin grafts, she needs all these things done, and then everything stops.
No.
So, that's another person.
We have another. Hold on. I want to ask about this. I didn't know anything about the P1 adding a justification, and here's why that doesn't seem right to me. P1 for US RAP, for anybody who's not familiar, you are referred by a US entity, whether it's a media organization, an NGO, the US Embassy. I think UNHCR can refer you for P1 too, right? So there are non-US entities that can refer for P1 maybe. But why do you need a justification?
I think the original template wasn't enough. They decided that wasn't, the explanation or the reason why wasn't enough. So they added that in after the fact. So anybody that didn't have that done, cases were stalled, and people thought that their cases were just, going through the process, and they're not.
And is that why people would not get like an ARR number, maybe because they didn't know? And
or they got the ARR number, but they didn't get the RSC number. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. I know some people who never got an ARR number and thought that they had P1, but they never got the number and they were just waiting. These are all things that, like, think about that these people had to just wait and find out. And then if they missed an email, which if you're an Afghan and you're already not getting paid and already in a dangerous situation, like every Afghan who's in the process has to pay for internet and monitor it like a hawk so that they don't miss these things. I'm done now. You can please I'm really angry. Please share more stories that will make me even more angry. This is great.
Yeah. Sorry. But these are but the important thing is I think people need to understand that these are cases that really do matter. So to wipe the slate and say, we're not going to focus on Afghanistan and it's no longer a mission, that's unsatisfactory. That's unacceptable. We've been doing this too long and we know these people. Another one that we have, the mom was medevaced unconscious, during the bombing, without her 3 daughters. Her dad was deceased of natural causes, but worked for the United States and, was a contractor, but died years ago. So she was put on a plane because she was wounded. She had shrapnel. We have her, her battle cards that show where the shrapnel is in her body, unconscious with 3 daughters, young daughters. We were able to get 2 of them out. One was just over the cutoff age. And the Taliban, she was living in her mom's apartment, but nobody was paying for it. There was no money. So the landlord came and said, literally, I'm going to lock you in or lock you out, because the Taliban was asking who was in, where they were living. They were tracking, searching. And so we were able to get her out and get her to Pakistan. She'd had her medical, she'd had her interviews, and now she's stuck all by herself in Pakistan. When we took her mom unconscious, and her daughter's now doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
That's sick. That is absolutely sickening. And everybody knows what it's like to be a single woman alone in Afghanistan, right? You can't do anything. The Taliban has cut down on everything. But being a single woman in Pakistan comes with its own kettle of fish. How many horrible stories have I heard about Afghan women being raped in Pakistan? Because they're just, the misogyny in the culture is a problem. And, a young woman target with no male to protect her. It's like, everything in me is angry about that scenario. Yeah. We brought her out and then we separate. Like, that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you, I don't know, I guess when you try to go to sleep at night, every single one of these cases are constantly swimming, like, and what can I do? And then you have to tell yourself, well, right now I can't do anything. It's not like we can go to Afghanistan and pull people out. It's not like we can go to Pakistan and pull people out. We're at the mercy of our government right now. And we're just, I just want somebody to tell me what, the next couple weeks, the next couple months are going to bring. And, even that, just with all the government background that I have and the 2 branches of the military, if I just have somebody that puts some order to this, I can work with that. But I don't know what I'm working with right now.
Yeah. And like, if you do a blanket carve out, like I've had Afghans write in letters, right? Usually every episode, there's a letter at the end. If I have a letter from an Afghan, who is wanting to share anything, right? And I had one Afghan recently send me a letter asking for a carve out for, I believe it was like military personnel, but a carve out like that would not capture this young lady who's alone in Pakistan. And that's why carve outs, I think, are just doomed. These are humans, and everybody's story is different. And, if somebody, especially if somebody has the support of an organization like Operation Recovery, I guarantee you they have been vetted. People care about them because these are people who are giving their time for 3.5 years. Like, they're not doing that for somebody who just is like, meh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine in Afghanistan.
Right.
We'll just let you go. Like, that's not what this is.
Mm-mm.
Are there any other cases you want to talk about that you think listeners would benefit from hearing?
Yeah. There's another one that we're working with. This is another P1. The commander that put him in. Now, this is somebody that saved lives coming down a mountain, identified the Taliban, identified their location, saved American lives. But the commander, I don't know what happened, but he was connected to him via WhatsApp, and that's a phone number. So that's the number that he put on his P1. So IOM they weren't able to contact him. They'd been reaching out to him with no contact. When we finally realized this, we started reaching out. This is on behalf of somebody else, not with Operation Recovery. So we started reaching out to our connections to try to put the pieces together. Like, what, you read his story and he's that one, that person that said we've got the good ones out, or the ones, that's not true. It's so not true. You read his story and you don't understand why he's still where he is. And, when we fixed the problem, it took us less than an hour to find 3 numbers and probably like 5 emails, to fix the problem. And then he had gotten contacted by IOM to start that interview process and to turn over his passports and things like that when everything stopped. So we just fixed that problem, and that individual saved American lives. Unquestionable.
Wow. Are there people, I know that there are so many people who have someone in the administration, right, who they are talking to about like a specific case or whatnot. I mean, have you guys attempted to work that angle of this, bringing these cases to government?
Yeah, and we recommend, we give the tools for everybody to do that. Especially so if you're the P1 referrer in a certain state, that's just more reach, right? I can talk to mine all day long. I'm in a small state. Mine are very receptive. I can send them any information. I can send them documentation like, hey, when you guys talk about this, talk about this. Mm-hmm. This is what you need to bring to the table. But we need everybody to do that. And the more people, the more stories that get to them. We need people to feel the stabs that we're feeling right now. Because, it's untenable. We can't keep on like this.
Tell me about that. What is it that makes it untenable? I mean, I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it because you're going to have so much heart to it that just saying it doesn't. Yeah.
Well, I think that, if other people and our veteran lawmakers, I'm or they hear these stories. But I think they need to listen, because I don't know that they're listening. Because if they did, they would hear the veterans and the emotional turmoil that we're dealing with right now. They would hear the stories of the Afghans that are sending them these stories. They would hear the stories of the civilians that are sending them these stories. But I don't think they're listening, because if they were, they would care about the Americans that are behind all the Afghan allies that we're trying to help. They would hear our voices too, and we're just not hearing theirs, so they must not be hearing ours.
I like to think that is the explanation. I mean, when I think about the amount of time, money, sleeplessness, all of those things that have gone into the last 3.5 years, it's gotten short shrift. I remember there was like an act, that they were going to thank all of the veterans who did things, but they didn't explain what those things were. And then that also doesn't encapsulate the civilians who are also doing, because it's not just veterans, but there are many veterans and incredible veterans like yourself who are doing this, but it didn't get to the whole effort. Like, if you can't tell, if you can't name all of the kinds of people who are doing this, then you really don't understand what it is. And that it is I was trying to describe this to someone recently, and as I've said it here on the podcast before, but this is something that pulled people from every kind of demographic. You've got people who care about Afghanistan because they, went there to spread religion. You've got people who are in the media. You've got people who wanted to teach language, Peace Corps type things, like humanitarian groups, military groups. So many kinds of people went to Afghanistan over 20 years. And more people than that got roped in because of something random that, they're like, oh my God, I'm watching this and I can't I should say legal personnel too. I mean, it's just anything that you need to build up a democracy, we sent it there.
Yeah.
So, like, of course, and I don't think that politicians quite realize the breadth of people who care about Afghanistan.
Yeah, and the passion that they hold, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what is needed. If they heard all of those things, maybe they would care too. And if not, we all care enough that, this isn't gonna... How is Operation Recovery preparing right now for what's coming? Because, the unknowable. What's the plan for what's ahead for you guys?
I think we're really dialed into cases and making sure that, and it goes back to that 60% couldn't be reached because our contact information was bad. Fixing those things, purging, going through our database and really taking a hard look at who's left, the cases that are left. So, where do we want to put our attention? We've always known that like SIVs are, a priority, and that's established. So we know that should continue in some way. We just don't know the tempo. What the tempo is, we have no idea. And then, we had all these P cases, P1, P2, P3, P4. I think we wasted a lot of time on most of them. We were so angry, like with United for Ukraine, and it took so long for us to be able to name an Afghan that was our ally that had a case. So you're like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Just make it fair. Just knowing that all of those people think that they have a pathway for a reason, not just because, but for a reason. So just, really identifying where everybody is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy to think, before the big push was like, oh, we need AAA to pass so that we can expand and make this more inclusive. And now we're like, oh my God, it's all contracting and what's going to happen. And maybe it won't, but yeah, I can imagine. And I'm sure that the number of people reaching out to you for assistance right now probably is going up if you're anything like my inbox.
Yeah.
You know, the number of people who need help, you always hear more when this kind of thing is happening. And I'm sure, do you guys have the capacity to take on more cases now, or?
So we never really, if somebody has a pathway and there's, and you know, there's some sort of help that we can provide, we're going to provide it. We've done, one of the things I think we've done really well at is paying attention to all the different cases, and making those connections. Whether it's the DS 4317, the P1, you know, DOD, different entities, we've done really good at, you know, just kind of learning that process so that we can help walk people through it. I'm now taking basic immigration law to become an advocate, because I'm like, we know it. We've been doing this for 3 years. How can I better serve the people that we're serving? And how can I better advise people? How can I say, you know, these are all your pathways to look at, you know, I do recommend you get a lawyer, but I can identify multiple pathways. So, you know, for everybody that's a refugee right now, looking at, you know, the consular track as well, like, you know, you had DOD and, you know, the military promising their parents to come, you know, to help them get their parents out, you know, if they're eligible, you know, if they're vetted, and they go through the process, like, you know, every P1, but, you know, they also would be, if the military member is an American citizen, then they would also be eligible for an I-130, right? And now, you know, knowing that they're on pause, what are you looking at? And kind of telling people that this is what you need to do, right? Without, you know, number one, get the lawyer, an immigration lawyer that's highly trained, highly skilled right now, because we need it. We need all the help we can get. Yeah. And then we pay attention to that. So, you know, you talk to a lawyer, what does that lawyer say? So that's how we learn. It's not just by reading, you know, the Afghan inquiries page. It's by all the lawyers that are helping these cases. And then, you know, you get a hold of some information on that, and this is the pathway they recommended. So you have that in your mind that this person actually has 3 or 4 tracks to get here. Mm-hmm. You know, people with the platforms, they have multiple tracks, you know, that they could get here on. So making sure that they're aware of that.
That's amazing. You guys are like ninjas of the world out there.
But we're also in tune. Yeah, we're in tune. We're dialed in. We're not going anywhere. So, you know, if everybody thinks that we're just going to quietly, you know, fade away into the mist, that's not going to happen, because, you know, my interpreter's here. But I'm still here, so I'm not, you know, as many times as I've wanted to say, you know what, I'm going to sleep tonight, I'm done, you know, I need to get some rest. You wake up the next morning and you're like, nope, you know, those cases that I want others to hear, they're still with me, so I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. You said something before we started recording about a P4 case, and before you talk about it, I also want to know, did you guys at OpRico fund that P4 case together? So I want to, because that's something it's a unique kind of thing. So I'd like to know how that got done. And because also then that would mean that you took on the burden of that, and what happens now after.
We don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about it.
So,
yay.
So myself and another one of our volunteers, we're helping another person. We're in Vermont. She's in New York, but she had special forces. He was a member of the special forces. His son had epilepsy, so he left the military because he was, you know, because of his role, and he needed to be home with his son and help his wife with his son. He left and became a barber. So our group is called Barber. And it, you know, and it's a wonderful family, two children, you know, husband and wife. We thought, you know, that we were moving along great. We had the military grant money, you know, that extra funding to get them here. We had a ton of people, and this just shows that the American people want to help in some way. We racked up the donations, and we were just moving right along, and now it's gone. So, what we're doing now is reaching out to the donors because we need to look at other options. Is there another option open to this family? Like, when we look at things, it's never, oh, you're an SIV. Okay. It's what if the SIV doesn't happen? What if you didn't have the time that you needed? What if something comes back that, you were terminated from your job because you were at the doctor because you were sick?
Right.
We need to move into a different track. So that's what we're doing now. We thought everything was great and it was moving along, and we actually have a basement full of furniture for this family.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So we had a job lined up. We had a basement full of furnishings, and now we're looking at each other like, okay, we have to figure out something else. So that's where we're at. And
yeah.
Because we don't even know if the grant money is still there, because it's essentially shut down. So
right.
we don't know if what we were promised as veterans, that's money that we applied for on behalf of an Afghan that we know,
mm-hmm.
and we don't even know if it's going to be there. Nobody will give us those answers.
2 questions following up from there. When has it ever been straightforward? Have you ever had a case that just was like, boop, 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 oh my God, look at them go? Like, has that ever happened?
Yeah. And then it came,
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Nope. So one thing that we are really good at, and that's Ian, he can find anybody. So, we have somebody come to us and they're like, we can't find, who we worked with to do a P1. Mm-hmm. So we find people and then they'll write the referral. They're like, oh my gosh, I remember him. I lost track of him. We connect the two. So now the Afghan's communicating with somebody that he knew. We help them, we get them like the email to get the P1 and application and process. So we had one, and the sad part of this, it's one of Aaron's families, and he passed away. Now it's 2 years. Major Horiel, he worked with us.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so he it's one of his families. So we found the person because he couldn't do the referrals for them, obviously, and we found the person that could. We got the P1 package in March. They started their interview process months later. It was that fast.
Wow.
That fast. They'd done the medical. He had taken his parents with him when he fled Afghanistan, so we were able to get the parents added because he was financially responsible for them. They were in the last steps in that kind of 90-day to 120-day waiting period to get the flights, but it passed everything and nothing. But it was so smooth. Like, I can't even describe to you how, like, when he would send me a message, like, guess what we're doing? And I'm like, you know what? We're getting our medical today. You're what? And this was just this all occurred in 2024 and, starting in the spring and throughout. And then now they're sitting in Pakistan waiting.
Wow. I guess my hypothesis has been proven then that nothing has ever gone easy in this. Yeah. And, maybe that's a point of hope, right? But the other follow-up question I had for you, how many, and I hope that the answer is 0 by like some strike. I don't, if it is, I'm going to be astonished. How many humanitarian parole requests has Operation Rico funded to your, none?
Well, no, so we haven't funded any.
Okay. So you guys never paid the upfront costs of like, how many, okay, then let's phrase it this way. Humanitarian parole requests from anyone that you've supported that they have funded and then not had answered. How many of those have there been? Oh,
gosh. Can you just say pretty much all of them? Mm-hmm. We even had some that were approved, conditionally approved, but not notified. So,
no.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
No. So,
holy cow.
Going down, and that's that multiple track, right? I need to have one of our volunteers come on with you, and he could tell all of these stories really well.
Oh, I would love that.
But he, so, looking at multiple tracks because the HP wasn't going anywhere. And then this person interviewed, I want to say twice, to come here to go to school. And both of those, you had to have that you had to prove that you were not going to go back. And the counselors, have to make that decision. Do they think that you're not going to go back? So, both times she didn't get to come. Then tracking on the HP, going back, when this didn't happen, then we go back to the HP, he checks it. It's been conditionally approved for some time and no notification.
And so you can't.
So even when they go right, they're wrong. Yeah.
So the reason I asked this for anybody because for the last however many weeks this podcast has been all about the executive orders, which largely impact US RAP and then, SIV in some ways, but not like SIV is still getting processed. It's just somebody described it really well. It's a train, it's running, but there's no track or it's just, it's like, yeah, it's going, but like you have to self-fund. And then when you come here, you don't get resettlement funds. So you can still get it. It's just not like what it used to be. But with HP, we haven't talked about that. And think about all of these families. Every humanitarian parole applicant paid a $575 fee to USCIS. They netted something like, I can't remember, and I hate to use, it was in the tens of millions of dollars in fees from Afghan humanitarian parole applicants. And it was like 1% had been conditionally approved at one juncture. And it went up from there. Like they had been conditionally approving more people. But all of those Afghans, now I'm like, what happens? And I haven't brought this up because it's like there are other immediate concerns. But how many dollars were just gone? And that could have been dollars that were spent, $575 per person doesn't seem like a lot until you think, oh, well, what if it was a family of 6? Right. And what if now they're living in Pakistan and they don't have anything to their name, and that $3,000 could have
paid rent for a year.
Yeah, like really, like, and they shouldn't be there because we said 12 to 18 months. Or an HP, usually if you applied for HP, it was in addition to something else because you were waiting on P1 and maybe there was all this hope in the beginning, right? And I think that's what I'm getting back to is the hope. People thought, well, maybe HP, we definitely qualify for humanitarian parole because we are at imminent risk under the Taliban. So we qualify. And so many people applied and then nothing happened. And so what happens now? The U.S. government just gets to get rich off of HP or take in money off HP that could have been used.
So that's a sensitive topic for me because we did do that. Luckily we had a lawyer, a team take on my interpreter when we weren't sure if his SIV was going to go through. But now for the female that's there with her parents, I'm paying a lawyer to do an HP package for her because we don't know what's going to happen. And that'll have the multiple track for her. So she would have the consular track and then, the refugee track. If the refugee track opens up, maybe we get a win there. But we can't just sit here and do nothing. So, we're paying, an immigration lawyer because we want it done right. And, there's going to be a lot of eyes on a lot of things right now. So we just need to make sure that everything, every I has a dot, it's like everything is perfect. And, when we did it before, we were taking all these classes and looking at all these webinars and doing the HP, packages ourselves and submitting them. Like it was insane. Just to save the money, right? And because we were doing so many. And now it's, I don't trust myself, even though I'm learning and, and I could probably look at my law book that I have right here and do it myself. But I would, what if I do something wrong? Yeah. So I can't, I have to pay a lawyer to do it. And this is somebody, and I'm paying for somebody that our U.S. government, I'm trying to solve a problem that our government created, myself.
Yeah. But think about it, Elizabeth. Isn't that like your last 3.5 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're trying to solve a problem that the U.S. government created.
Yes.
Like, and I don't often talk about this on here, but like anybody with half a brain knew what the Taliban was going to do when they came in, and that they were going to come in. It was a question of when. Are they going to make it until the fall? Are they going to make it till the end of the summer? Are they going to make it a year? It was never a question of when, it was if. Or I'm sorry, the opposite. It wasn't. It was gonna freaking happen, and we knew what was gonna happen to all the people that we cared about, that we said, hey, we're not gonna let this happen to you. We did this. And it's not just Biden. It goes back to everybody who thought, let's negotiate with these terrorists. That's a grand plan. After when Obama did it in 2013, when Trump did Doha so this is a U.S. government problem, and it's time for the U.S. government to fix it, and not to harm people who have been doing this for them for the last 3.5 years. I think that's what makes me so angry.
Yeah.
It's like people are looking around like, we don't know you. I'm like, you... What? Hold on.
Yeah.
You employed me to do, like, hello. So... I want you to tell me if there's anything that we haven't covered that you think listeners need to know. This is your floor. It is all you, Elizabeth. Go for it. Break hearts, make people angry.
I would be amiss. I think you've seen it. We're getting ready to do something at Harvard in March. And I think it's very important right now because, I would have told you a year ago that, Afghanistan is it, this is what I'm working on. This is, and then when this is done, I'm going to retire officially. Like I'm going to take a break. And, I'm not getting that mental break. So, in my mind, when people were moving and cases were moving, and granted, we did have some, we were just like, no, we have an 80-something-year-old SIV. He just got a denial. We're working on this appeal. This is terrible. This should not be happening. But I think we've got it fixed, so that's good. We're working on it. But I think that we had gotten into a good mental state. We were still, frustrated. We weren't moving fast enough. But we were moving mountains at the same time. We weren't moving fast enough. And our allies were coming here. The platforms were running smoothly. We were gaining platforms and places to work and process. And, to have it all come to a screeching halt, again, we talk about the 2021, complexities and the unknowns of 2021. Now we know better. And so the mental state is, it's so much worse. This is so much harder. Only because we know what can be done and we know the good that we can do, and we're not doing it, and we're not capable of doing it right now. When you have people reaching out to you every single day asking what's going to happen with their case, what's going to happen with me, I can't go back. And we know that. We all know that. And we have to answer those emails and those questions. And I think the hardest part is that we know better. So, to all the veterans and everybody that's working in this environment, if you have the opportunity, we're doing an event and it's all about mental health. It's not just getting better, but, because I don't like to say that I need to get better, right? But sometimes we need support. And we need to understand things, and we need to be able to stop and, assess what's happening in our lives and get back on track. We need to find those tracks, like you said. It's a train with no tracks. So we need to find those tracks. And I think that's what this event can do. Just anybody out there that's, you might not think you need help because you're stubborn, but sometimes when you sit and you listen to somebody talking about the very same things that you're thinking about, you realize that maybe you do need a little bit of help.
Absolutely. I think it's so valuable. When I heard about it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. And I wanted to be there.
Yeah. You can be there virtually.
Yeah.
And even
yes.
that's the nice thing is that, it's an all day event. So it's like, I think 13 hours long. Ends with a movie, at the end. And the movie Sheepdog, and you can look it up on IMDb. It's really good. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a great ending to the day. But for people that can't get there, we're going to have it virtually, so you can tune in when you can. Take a look at the agenda, and you can target a few things that mean something to you. And then just I don't know. I think it's going to be quite an event. And I would just recommend anybody in this space to at least participate in something. It's free.
Yeah. It sounds incredible. And I will link, I think there's an online link that I can include in the show notes.
Yep.
So I'll make sure that is in there and that you guys all have access, because it is. I keep telling people and not listening myself,
exactly
all those things.
That's me
put
too.
on your own oxygen mask and make sure you're taking, and it's oh my gosh. Sleep. It's important. Resiliency is a skill. It doesn't just come. You have to work at it, and you have to give yourself time, which feels so unfair when people are under duress, right?
Yeah.
But
when you're making a meal and somebody's not eating one, it's very hard.
Oh gosh, yes. There's a lot about everything that has happened in these last 3.5 years that one day I think there's going to be a lot of decompression and trauma release that's going to need to happen from just built up dealing with these things every single day. Sounds like a great start. But it's in the midst of it, as it's the waves are getting higher. So it's yes, this is really important right now. And then we use those skills when eventually, crossing everything, that this does settle, and that the powers that be realize just how, like you said, they need to hear it, not just listen. Well, Elizabeth, I really appreciate you being here to tell these stories and to talk about these very, I likened it the other day to you almost speak a separate language from everyone else in society when you're HP and then the this and this, you're using all the DS blah, 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 and it's it's so specialized, right?
Yeah.
But the people who follow this podcast know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And or if you don't, look it up, because you need to know.
Yes. That's how you learn. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
Find the answers to the things you don't know, and you will expand your horizons. Well, thank you so much. I've expanded mine. I am even angrier than I was when we started. So thank you very much. Anger is my fuel. No. Yeah. I'm serious, man. Anger is the cleanest burning fuel out there. So
you can't quit this, right? You can't quit it. No. And I don't know how anybody could.
Right. I think that the attrition that was going to happen has already happened. I don't think there's going to be much more of it at this point. People who are in this. They just need the tools that you guys are getting ready to provide. So to refit for the next, whatever happens.
Yep. To start over. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's a daunting prospect, but what's the other option?
Yeah.
To say, hey, yeah, thanks. I've cared about you for several years now, and I'm just going to let you go back to Afghanistan. Have fun.
Yeah.
Not happening. Well, I appreciate everything you do, everything Operation Recovery does, everything all of the other groups in this space, because there are so many of them doing this. It's an incredible group of people doing incredible things, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
And thank you to everybody who listened, and make sure subscribe, enable notifications, get all those good things coming out that come out every, I don't know, it used to be every Monday, but guys, now things just come out when they come out because there's a lot going on. So Tasha Kaur, and hope to see you again soon.